Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So this is essentially just something I want to do. Something I talked to John Madden passed away was essentially just like have a bunch of pros like come in and kind of have them talk about like how they do things, how they coach, how they train, like what they do in terms of like contest prep. Because we do have a huge community of scientific individuals, and they openly do stuff like this from a scientific evidence-based perspective, but you never hear anything about like the top pros, what they're doing and how they're handling certain things. I think it would
be. Yeah. You kind of fading in and out a little bit, so I'm not sure if it's where your mic is or not, but I can hear you. But some of the parts like skipping, so maybe the mic's off. But man, where do you want me to begin?
Just figure it out. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, man. Just what do you think? Your training principles and how you tend to approach coaching.
Man. So training principles. I mean, before we start with the physical, it's got to be a business approach. So accountability, adherence, communication, and then, transparency. So having everything needs to be two-way, though. All four of those needs to be two-way, which means the coach and client need to have those things at the top of the priority list when it comes to doing so. And if we can't agree to those terms, then we can't fit. So like when I do an application, and a lot of folks don't do that. A lot of coaches will say, I got 4 or 5 spots left, sign up now, fill this out. But then they fill it out, not for the sake of evaluating the client-coach relationship, but for the sake of putting them through it to see if they just want to do it and take them on. Like I literally have been on consults with folks that say, yeah, we're not going to be a good fit. You know, if you tell me right now that you can't give me 3 to 4 days of you logging your normal day, that's what you're doing, and then turn it into me, we can't be a good fit. Because if I give you a plan, you're not going to follow through with that either. Or if you tell me, hey, I need, 24 hours access communication, but you're only going to pay $100 a month for your budget. we can't, because you got to be able to invest everything that you expect into what you're asking me to do. So if you pay me $100 a month, which no one ever will, then understand what you're going to get from me. So everything has to be transparent from the jump. That all ties into training. So a needs analysis assessment, which I see coaches are now trying to use it. I think I started talking about that a while ago. But even from an online standpoint, you need to have some form of tool for a needs analysis assessment from day one, whether that be OHS, gait test, even if you want to do, baseline strength, whatever, some kind of way to judge how you're starting their programming. We all know that clients come to us with, hey, I want this and this goal, that goal. I want to compete. I want to turn pro. I want to do these shows. But if you can't get their fibers to fire the right way, if they have imbalances you haven't fixed, how are you designing a program without identifying and telling them why they can't achieve those goals without correcting these issues first? Mm-hmm. So I always do a needs analysis assessment, whether it be virtual or in person. And then I put that into their program in the beginning. Like, yeah, I know you want to hit this, but if we're trying to hit this goal in 16 weeks, we need an additional 4 weeks just to do these correctional parts of your training program, and then explain to them why. Because if you can tell them why, then they're going to continue to invest. But if you just say these things, but you can't actually show your rationale for it and explain it in a program, you have no business coaching, or you have no business trying to coach that part. That's when you need to outsource to someone else or be honest up front. Again, transparency. Hey, I don't know how to do this. You're going to be my first client working through this part. Please bear with me, something like that. But oftentimes we'll see coaches take them on. They'll get midway through the prep and they have imbalances still. The physique's not popping. And then they blame the client for not doing X, Y, and Z instead of owning their part in the beginning. Like that front door needs to be like, hey, this is who I am. Just as we ask the client the same thing, that coach needs to say, this is who I am. This is what I can and can't do. Here's what I plan on doing with you going forward. If there are some discrepancies or if there's some things that the coach is not confident in, if you say that up front, they're probably going to stick with you for the honesty, or they say, hey, thanks for being honest. I'm going to go with someone else. But a lot of folks hide behind that and just take on the client. That's why I do an interview process and application. And I'll say, no, either you're not a good fit for me or I'm not a good fit for you.
I respect the shit of that. It's funny you say that because I know like I've worked like some gyms throughout the years, and I've always never liked how they handled it. But the way some gyms they'll have like when you're like as a personal trainer, it's like the 4-week block of like understanding movement patterns. I that's everyone needs to understand that, especially as a coach. But the one thing I never liked about like gyms when they would do it, it would like 4 weeks of like just body weight, and then like then you try to put someone underneath a load, and you have to reassess that entire movement pattern. So but I do think coaches need to get familiar with like movement patterns because understanding like the mechanics of someone's body, that's how you can fix someone's like if they're not, I don't feel my hamstrings or my glutes when I'm firing, and someone's like, oh, well, you're doing the movement, like, and they're thinking about them like their body doing it, like it's not going to be the same for that person. Like you have to understand like anatomy from a structural standpoint. Like if someone's doing it, like it might look right in your eye, but for their body, it's not right. So that's where that comes in place. So yeah, that's a good one. I've never actually thought about doing the interview. Like I normally just take some people on and work with them, but yeah, it's funny looking back. There's been clients like the moment I started talking with them, I was thinking I'm like, man, it's probably gonna work out that well, and it usually never did. So I should have did that interview approach. That's pretty good. I like that one.
That's how you're able to charge more though. So that allows you to charge more because like I literally asked one of the questions. I have 3 different dollar ranges on what they're willing to invest in. So that way I know what kind of client, what kind of commitment I'm getting. If they're going to only they can spend 100 to 250 to I think that's 4 something, and then my tier 3. Then I know what kind of commitment they're. Not to say that their financial situation is going to dictate their ability to perform, but if someone is really saying, hey, I got a goal and I want to turn pro, but you're going to pay me $300 a month, you may not be ready for this because the food you need to buy, the ability to go and train, like all of these things matter. And not that the financial thing is a deal breaker, but going in as a coach, what work am I have to do? If I take this person on that's going to invest, little or fewer than someone else that has the same goals, I have to do more legwork. I'm okay with that, but I need to know that up front what they're willing to invest in from a financial standpoint, because effort, you can always coach that up. But financially, we can't dictate that. And if a client is like, man, I really want to do this, but this is all I have, you as a coach need to make sure that you're okay and comfortable doing so. But having that ability to weed out a 5 for a financial investment or ability to train 4 or 5 days a week, whatever questions you ask, you weed that out and you also increase value for yourself as far as charging.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, those are some pretty good pointers to make. For me, when it comes to coaching, I tend to call them, and then we kind of just go over like basically what their general goals are, what their passion is, and why they're doing this, just to get like a general feel for them. So far, I've probably had like maybe 1 to 2 clients out of the amount that I have that actually never really followed anything. But everyone that I have has always been consistent with everything, and they do the work that's needed and that's required of them. I think is very interested. But before I do get them to start coaching with me, and usually set up like a questionnaire. I do like the movement pattern and the anatomy aspect of it. I think what I do is like I make them give me a list of exercises that they like to do. So this way, these are exercises that they're used to doing, and if they're used to doing it, they're able to perform it more efficiently without a single problem at all. So that kind of takes that part. And then when I'm done assessing everything, like their foods and stuff like that, I make the routine. So what I essentially do is I have them go for a full week of just trying out the program, and then give me feedback on like things that just they don't feel, things that they do feel, what will work for them, what doesn't, and then switch it around the next week, and then make sure everything is ready to go. And then from that point on, they now have a program that they enjoy to do that's based on their exercise selections, and then it just makes it so much easier for them to progress because now they can adhere to it.
Yeah, what you're doing is what I preach a lot of just trainers need to do, not even in just bodybuilding. It's habit coaching before lifestyle changes. So like someone comes to us 400 pounds and eats 4 to 5 large pieces a day. Yeah. You can't put them on chicken breast right away. You need to go from 4 large pieces to 3.5 large pieces to 3 large pieces and so on and so forth. Because then they're going to see, oh, I'm eating less food. My body's changing. So the same thing goes for what you said with training. Like you need to see, hey, what do you like doing? Let me know. I'll see, you can probably gauge their effort and just probably ramp up that part of it. They like doing it. How do they perform it? Probably video record to see how they do it. If you can tweak their form to improve their favorite lifts, and then you add in these things in phases. I don't even think a lot of coaches do that, because the first thing they want to do is, let me show you how smart I am. Like, that's not how I hired you. So I do habit coaching. So I do the same thing that you just said with the nutrition. The first 3 or 4 days, they're going to just log their normal days. I don't care if they're at family outings. I had one client come on board during a family vacation in Miami, and I said, just log it. I don't care. And then the following 2 weeks, he was down 10 pounds with his new diet. Like, because I made him make his diet around what he would normally do. And then he's in control. So once they feel in control, like, I have say-so in this relationship, you know, hey, I have input. Humans like autonomy. Coaches don't understand what autonomy is, because it's a more so a psychological thing, which they need to take up another course. I've told Charles this. Psychology is part of coaching. Yeah. But if you give autonomy and some kind of partnership to this relationship, your clients are going to be more invested into actually doing what you put out for them. And that's a great point as far as the training part of it.
Yeah. Well, that goes down. It's the idea of autonomy is like, you know, I eat pretty much the same meals every day, but I like the meals that I eat, I really like, I enjoy cooking. I enjoy making, I make them flavorful. So for me, it's not like I'm eating the same thing every day. But it's funny because like a lot of my clients through the questionnaire, I always have like likes and dislikes. And then especially with a lot of my powerlifters, I'll always ask them like, hey man, like, what's your favorite treat, like snack food? Like, you know, Sour Patch, muffins, Pop-Tarts, whatever. And they're always like, oh, it's this. And I will literally go in and I'll get the macros and I'll put it within the meal plan. And I say, you get this pre-workout. Like, you know, or like you get this for like this meal. And if you can keep that stuff in there, as long as these people are having like, honestly, like Pop-Tarts, like pre-workout for most people, especially a lot of the powerlifters, you're training like 4 to 5 days out of the week. You're only getting that throughout the week, but you enjoy eating that. The rest of it is easy to adhere to. And I mean, I've done simple stuff like this. Like, you know, one of my clients post-workout was like, you know, chicken, rice, and some green beans. And he's like, oh man, it gets bland. And I was like, dude, add salsa to it. And he's like, you can add salsa? I'm like, yeah, it's a condiment, you're fine. And he added, he's like, dude, this is so good. Like, you eat it all the time. And it's so funny that I think so many people don't think about, you know, certain condiments and like, you know, creating more flavor. Everyone literally thinks like if the diet says like chicken rice or beef rice, that's literally it. I'm like, no, you can have condiments. Like, you know, you just can't like, you can't take like a, you know, some straight up barbecue sauce that has like a lot of sugar and just dump it in there. Like the sauce is really good. Sauce is really great. Low sodium soy sauce. There's just so many condiments that, especially nowadays, you see a lot of sugar-free stuff, and it just makes it so much better. Or just learn how to use seasonings, man. Like garlic powder goes a long way. Mustard, the ketchup, you know, just the simple stuff. But I think as long as you can make it to where if nutrition is enjoyable, then and this is how I've told you, like it's creating a variable in certain things, but making the things that aren't enjoyable enjoyable. Like for me, bodybuilding, the nutrition isn't always the enjoyable part because I'm in a caloric deficit. So I make my training enjoyable. I do things I love doing. I love my squats. I love my deadlifts. I love certain movements. Like, oh, dude, I can't wait to go to the fucking gym today, even if I'm on like 40 grams of carbs. Like, I'm like dead, but I'm like, dude, I can't wait to fucking smash legs on like nothing, you know. So a lot of my power lifters, like I have them do movement patterns that are like, they have a purpose. Like it's meant to work on a weakness. A lot of these movement patterns, like when I first put someone underneath the SSB bar, they hate it. Like a safety squat bar, they hate it because if you don't know how to brace, your ass will fold, dude. It's just what it does. And most of them hate it. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do stuff in the program because I'm trying to, you know, work on your weak points for powerlifting because that's what it's about. It's about hitting weak points. So you're going to be doing some movements you don't like. So nutrition's fun. Now it's bodybuilding. You're not going to enjoy the nutrition. Like Paul, like, you know, what movements do you like? Oh, dude, I love doing this. Cool. Let's add that in there. So like when you go into the gym, you're fucking excited to get it because you're like, man, I get to get this today. So it's always in this sport, like there's certain things just, it's not going to be fun. Like bodybuilding, nutrition is usually not the fun part, you know, powerlifting, like, you know, the movements aren't usually the fun part. So it's like, you have to learn how to like add a bit of fun and flavor to the programming. And I think that's where so many coaches fail because that's what drives adherence is making things enjoyable because it's simple. Yeah.
But with even bodybuilding nutrition, and here's why I feel like it's not as enjoyable, especially if you're not an elite competitor, like an elite, I mean, even an elite amateur, or if you haven't, you know, identified or been identified as an elite pro, your diet should not be so miserable. Here's why. Here's why. A lot of coaches are big on saying sodium is a problem. Keep the sodium low. I'm like, okay, understand this. Unless you have high blood pressure, you have no real reason to limit sodium.
Yeah.
The functionalities of sodium, kidney, health, it actually helps with water retention, fullness in the muscle belly. Sodium helps with that. So in the sport of bodybuilding, you need to,
especially in Texas.
Yeah, right. So in the sport where you need to be full and hard, why remove a part of the diet that's necessary? Mm-hmm. So like Paul is saying on Facebook a lot, like I'm big on mustard. I put mustard on all my meals, like all of it. And they're like, why you put so much mustard? Because it's 0 calories and it's a bunch of sodium. Okay. And it makes everything taste well. Like, I don't care about it. So like when they ask, well, how do you look so the way that you do 6-8 weeks out and you're supposed to be on no carbs? Because my food is still the same. The carbs are not going to keep me full for an entire 8 weeks. My sodium is genetically works out with me. So folks don't get that part.
Well, it's funny you say that, because like I like when people are like, oh man, I have like, oh, check out the carb pump, and I'm like, that's not the carb pump, bro. That's the sodium pump. Like, what the food you ate before you went to the gym that was high in carbs was also extremely high in sodium usually. So it's not the carbs that are giving you those pumps. That's the sodium that does that. So yeah. I did on like a lot of my meals, like I'll salt. Like my oatmeal and cream of rice, I add salt when I'm cooking it, and then I add salt afterwards because it's using my pre-workout. So
yep.
So a good question that I have is, how do you handle like training protocols? Do you just start them off at like higher volume, low volume? How do you like, what are your phases for training?
In the past, maybe 4 or 6 years ago, I would have a lot more phases where the volume would change as far as rep ranges. But over the past maybe 3 or 4 years, for the most part, especially with men, I ventured away from that. And number one, let's make sure we understand that people watching this, nutrition are all guidelines. They're not like law. So if I put 10 reps on there or 15, you can do 30. I don't give a shit. Produce some results for me. That's all that matters. However, what matters, though, is their execution on the top sets. That's where the work comes into play. So I don't care if you do 3 to 4 working sets. Once you get to those top sets, I need like the best possible form and the best effort given within, relatively speaking, to what I'm asking you to do. So with that said, though, I generally go for more so, especially the beginning. I really want to test their willpower. And I'm really pushing to 10 to 12 rep range, sometimes 8 to 10 rep range, asking about 80 to 90% of their max load. Because I want to see them pretty much try to push themselves to the very last drop at the beginning of a training program. And then by the end of that, whether it be a 3-month block, I'm going to revisit that with 90% max load again. But I expect higher weights. So I expect them to have a harder look, bigger intensity, and their epoch should be a lot higher, which means I could put a cardio down a lot. And if someone watching doesn't know what epoch is, which I know most bodybuilding coaches don't, so which means the harder you train, the more you burn, the less extra useless work you need to do with cardio. But with that, though, as far as training protocols, I usually want to ramp them up, though. Like, I like doing mesocycles that allow them to gradually get used to it. So it may be only one top set as they work up to it. And that top set may be, hey, let's see if you can go one less than a failure. And then within that, I'll have a 6-week window usually. So ramp up first week. And then the next 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're going to go to gradually progressive overload. Then week 6, some kind of deload or like some kind of maxed out to see how you have progressed in those 6 weeks. Then do the same thing for block 2, probably some different movements based on the physique response. How do they look? What areas need improvement? Probably cutting out some areas that don't need as much work, doing the same process over and over, but now identifying areas of improvement for the physique development. And then in the last block, this is a non-prep client, like non-bodybuilding. This is more so, hey, general fitness, I want to see some results or performance because I'm big on performance coaching. And then that last block, we're now doing a lot more compound movements with some minimal accessory works, really just trying to get maximum output in that same 6-week period, but it's still following a ramp up and then a deload at the back end of it. And then if they're going, beyond 3 or 4 months, we're doing the same thing, but now really identifying other goals that they're going to set that I'll identify as well. And, you guys know this process is recycled over and over, but we're now setting new benchmarks to hit. But at some point, though, they're going to always be used to working at, hey, I'm going in the gym. I got 1 warm-up set and 2 to 3 top sets. That's literally how I have in my program. It's usually 3 sets total. And they got 1 warm-up set. So they did get in the gym. It is literally about 75, 80% on that first set. Those last 2, you need to be dying, asking for a spot or assisted reps. So, because I want you out of the gym. Most of my programs are designed for you to train. And I say train, not like just in the gym, like literally movement time is about 30 to 40 minutes and then cardio and out because I'm big on recovery.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's been so many times where I've tried to tell people that like spending hours and countless hours at the gym is actually very catabolic. But like when you say that, they're just like, oh, but you look this way. You must spend hours. I'm like, no, I'm like, I would say I'm probably at the gym like maybe like an hour to an hour and a half based on what I have to do. But majority of the time, it's just I'm in there and I get out. And I think that's one thing that a lot of coaches tend to do with their clients. They give them a whole list of exercises to do. And then their clients are stuck there for like 2 to 3 hours. So like when I have a client come to me and they're just like, this is only 7 exercises.
Well, it's funny because you got that client of the day and it's like, like Paul's like, we're sitting on the couch and Paul's like, no fucking way. And this email he got from a client and it's like the previous coach he had, like he showed like the program and it was like 30 exercises and it's like 4 sets of 12, 4 sets of 12, all the way down. And you're like, really? And it's funny because like, I made a post like a real while back and it's like, if you get like your program from your coach makes excessive volume, it's trash. Just throw that shit out the window. Because like one of my female clients, she got like, when I started my program, it's like, she's like, just 5 exercises on leg day. I'm like, yeah, you'll find out. And her legs and like squat had just grown. And I'm like, well, that's all you need to do. But it's funny you talk about the EPOC, like, because typically, as a powerlifter moving to bodybuilding, everyone's always like, oh, you can't do squats or deads or stuff like this. It's too exhausting. I'm like, for someone that's a trained powerlifter, like doing deadlifts don't destroy me the same way as a bodybuilder who's never done deadlifts. But like, think about this too. The last couple of weeks, I've pulled up my deadlifts, and I feel like I'm not burning as much as I was before, and I won't have to do an RDLs. I don't care what anyone says. When I can rep 600 pounds for like anywhere for like 5+ reps on deadlift, that's going to burn a lot of fucking calories. Those big compounds burn a lot of calories. Like that's just, it is what it is. That doesn't mean I'm going to do like a 10 by 10 on squats. Like I'm not going to do any German volume training again. Like no, I'll do that on off season. But for me, hitting those big compound movements has always been something I like getting in the beginning when I'm fresh, my strength is at its best, hit the compound movements and then move off to like free range and isolation movements. Especially, I'm always been a big fan of like compound in the beginning, more free range, and then isolation because it's produced the highest amount of stimulus with the compound, free range to help increase the stimulus across the muscle that I'm trying to work. And isolation, that's where I do my volume because like the muscle group is isolated, there's less secondary movements, and then you get a bunch of blood flow to it, which is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Like you're trying to increase the blood flow to that muscle group to increase, blood flow into it and like kind of like tear the sarcomeres. But
basically,
cell swelling. That's all sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is cell swelling. But yeah, I'm big on those compound movements, man. Especially like go do some deadlifts and tell me how your body feels the rest of the day. You're gonna feel like you're for some squats. Your body's gonna feel like 1,000,000 degrees because it's just like burning the hell up.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks like movement pattern selection and programming is it's talked about a lot in bodybuilding now, but it's talked about in a depth range rather that is not needed. Like they have all of these warm-up movements for no reason. Like your warm-up for one just needs to be some dynamic movement and foam rolling and maybe mimicking the movement that you probably, maybe if you're tight in one area. But outside of that, you need to be getting going in the training. Like you spend so much time warming up, you're now wasting food that you just consumed. So now how do you expect to utilize the carbs that you have for energy that you're utilizing? You're literally using those glycogen storages warming up. So they spend so much time and they preach about it in seminars and videos. And I'm like, why do you have so many warm-up movements? Like even in sports, in general sports, you spend about a 5 to 7 minute window warming up and then you go start doing drills. That's how you're supposed to be. Like you only have so much energy, like pathways before that training. If you ate your meals to that point, you have so much ready to go for that window where it starts to have diminishing returns. And same thing with the training. Now it's not only that, just the mental part of it. You go into the gym, you've got your pre-workout. It's going to hit a peak level as well. So if you waste time doing the wrong things, you now trying to rely on energy cells that are there and pathways that are depleted to go through the hardest part of your training. So compounds should be first, unless you're like me. I'll literally like purposely put people's compounds at the end sometimes just to test their strength. Like, how much do you really have in the tank? Because I want to say, like, you got to get the CNS to like work in different ways. Yeah. So if you drive the same way to work each day for 2 years, and then there's an accident one day, you take a different route, different scenery, you get more energized. You now make your body start to adapt and be more alert and aware. So same thing with the CNS. So you can't like, okay, I've been doing compounds for, at the beginning of the training for the past 3 or 4 months, I'm gonna keep doing it. You're like, oh, I'm stagnated. Well, put them at the end. Instead of going for 10 to 15, do sets of 3 of that same weight. What do you have left in the tank? After everything's depleted, after all the stabilizers are pretty much taxed, do the same thing you've been doing at the beginning, but now you just test your CNS. You have a newfound desire. Like, I'm going to hit that next week. I missed it this week. I'm going to hit it next week. So now you have a different drive to go to the gym. But it can't always be on the coaches, though, to do that. This is why I hate RPE and bodybuilding, because they're going to lie about it.
They use our reps and reserves, apparently.
Oh,
I mean, it's so funny because RR is literally the inverse of RPE, 100%. Like,
oh my.
So they always have to come out with it's reinventing the wheel. But it's funny you say that because, like, for me, like, tomorrow's going to be my full day. And I've done like a few weeks of just, deficit. My deficit RDLs are basically everyone else's deadlifts. So I do that, but I'll probably add my deadlifts back in and get back into some heavy weights again these last few weeks. But for like me, when I'm warming up for deadlifts, like I'll go in, we used to do calves. Like I'll do like a few sets of calf raises or any calf exercise. Then I do 2 sets of leg curls just to warm up the hamstrings. And then I go, everyone's like, how do you warm up for deadlifts? With the deadlifts, like I have to work up to at least 6 plates. Like the warm up itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 plates. That's 5 warm up sets. So yeah, it's like if your max is like 3 something, then yeah, you're gonna get to your top set relatively quick. But for me, it's like I don't need to do a whole lot of warm ups because I have to, like, I'm gonna just throw on 225 and then 405. Like that's how you injure yourself. Like you have to like increase the weight, steadily versus just throwing on a whole bunch of plates and you're going to just get underneath that load and pull it, not injure yourself. So for me, that's the one. I love deadlifts, but that's the one thing that does it sucks being strong at them because it's like even squats. Like I got to work up to fucking 5 plates on squats when I'm doing my heavy back squats. So it's like
must be nice.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It sucks, bro. It does.
And the one thing I also want to add, the whole stretching thing. When you are lifting weights, if you're actually going down at the particular eccentric motion, you're literally just
that's the stretch itself. Yeah.
So I don't know why people.
Well, a lot of people don't understand this too. Is like stretching. So there's dynamic and static stretching. Like static stretching pre-lifts, actually you're decreasing the power output by it's the stretch reflex of the muscles. Dynamic stretching is like this, and it's movement patterns. But the whole like doing this before bench or like stretching your quads heavy before squats, and like someone's like, oh, I feel like I'm getting hurt. I'm like, you literally like, and this is what I've always told people, like I call it the rubber band analogy.
That's what it is.
Yeah, if you put a rubber band in a freezer and you pull it out and it's cold and you just jerk on it, it's gonna break. You have to let it warm up. But at the inverse of this, like if you take a rubber band that's already warm and you stretch and then just let go, it loses power potential versus pulling out and letting it pull you back in. So I tell people like that static stretch that you're holding a cold muscle, you're probably going to increase the risk of injury when you do that.
Absolutely. Not to mention performance output. Like you decrease it so much. So like quick like correlation as far as story. When I began strength conditioning in my alma mater, my high school in 2014, I went there literally with the sole purpose of teaching the coaches there and the players how to properly not only strength train, but perform better during the game by way of changing everything that I was taught as a high schooler, because it was all wrong. We all were taught static stretching for sports. It was all wrong. And that's fine. But so I literally, like, I was a DB coach, but also they let me do strength conditioning for all programs, football, basketball, baseball, and our track team. And the first team that I was able to work with, obviously, was my football team because it was summer. So, and the players are like, Coach, why are we not doing this and this, for our warm-ups? I'm like, you'll know. Like, just do it. Like, watch how we get ready to practice and perform. You'll see why. And over time, they're stronger in the gym. I had a kid who never bench pressed through 225 because they were committed to learning, and I was committed to getting the coaches on board as well because these same coaches coached me. And they're like, well, Leland, we're going to let you just have all of it. And I was like, cool, bet. I'm on the board, drawing everything out, the whole entire summer program. And the warm-ups, like, they were like, man, this is a lot better. And we go to the games, and the other teams are doing this static stretching. And every single time, like, we were able to outlast power and everything because of the summer commitment. So they went from being 5-5 the year prior, same coaching staff except myself, same player personnel, same playbook. They were 5-5 the year prior. We went 9-1. Okay? The only thing you changed was one variable, how we train. Okay? And, like, I put that same program, you know, obviously, like, okay, well, this wasn't a one-time thing. Following year, same thing. Then I went to North Carolina. I got put in the defensive tackle position, coach take over the strength conditioning program. Same thing applied. Okay, we were battling for state title in North Carolina. So, like, it's literally, and then when it comes to bodybuilding, it's the same thing. Like, if you warm up the right way, not only as a competitor will you be better off performance-wise, but you're literally gonna be able to go on stage better. That's why I don't get why folks pump up for a whole hour prior to stage and like, why am I so flat? You just spent your just pose. You spent your entire time doing the wrong things. But when we see it, like the three of us, when we see coaches like draw this mobility work or this pre-workout stuff going, it's literally the inverse of what they should be doing, or it's overkill. Because they really don't. That's why I hate seeing performance coaches in the bodybuilding realm, because they have no idea what the word performance means in terms of like body output. They think they do, and it looks cool, but I promise if I broke them down an entire program from like a full team, they'd be lost by week 3.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you say that because like my one of the boys that I coach still, it's my buddy's son. I was at the hospital when he was born when we were 17, and I coached him. And I remember like the first day he got with me, I was like, all right, cool, we're gonna go over spot bench deadlift. And he went to squat. I'm like, that's fucked up. We're fixing it. Deadlift, that's fucked up. We're fixing that. Squat, that's fucked. And like every movement pattern I just created, and then I got like 2 more of the tips from the school from him. And when they went back to school, like after, you know, like the summer of working with me, like fixing all their movement patterns, it's funny. They're like, after 1 week, they're like, I've been fixing so many, like everyone's form in the gym. It's all terrible. I'm like, now you see it. I'm like, he's like, even the coaches are like, how did y'all learn how to do all this? And he's like, oh, my coach. And like, I actually know some of the coaches at the school at the time. And like, oh, you know, I worked with Vogel. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you should listen to him. Because like, I've known, like, I went to school with these dudes, and they're all like, yeah, the guy is like, you know, yeah, just stick with him. He knows what the fuck he's doing. So,
and I think this is one of the things that people should actually preach, which it's been preached a lot more now than previous years, is form correction, technique, execution. Before, back in the days, like in the early 2000s, 2010, everyone was just like just slamming the weights.
Yeah.
But now people are like realizing, okay, form's actually a pretty good idea, especially in the pro level. It wasn't like that as always. So it's changed. And especially if you think about like beginners who have trained for a certain period of time and they don't necessarily know how to do like the right technique, the right form, the right execution. If you start teaching that to them and show them how to like do things properly, it's like they get newbie games all over again.
100%.
And that's just super important to think about.
It's funny you mention that because, you know, like the amount of people that used to shit on like Arnold and them back in the day and how they train, like, oh, that's all crap. And you like in the 90s, like the easiest one I remember was like rows, like watching like Arnold and them do like cable rows back in the day where they were like a full eccentric and then pull out, and everyone's like, oh, in the 90s, like, oh, research you don't need to do that, you can injure your lower back. It's not that you're injuring your lower back. A lot of people don't understand there's flexion and extension to your lumbar, and it's training your erectors and your core. What happened is a lot of people were trying to imitate Arnold and what they did without the same muscular development and having back injuries. I'm like, the spine can flex. I'm like, everybody was like leaning through with their lumbar and not worrying about thoracic extension, flexion, and then pulling through with the lats. And I'm like, and I've been explaining to someone, like, look at a collegiate rower that rows like this and tell me they have a small back. None of them. Like every collegiate rower you ever see has a fucking huge developed back. But you like in the 90s, you had a lot of people just doing rows like this. And like, and like in the 90s, you saw these like bodybuilders like huge upper backs, but their lats just like where the fuck their lats go?
Not thick.
Using them. Like if people hate on, like I love dumbbell pullovers. People hate on dumbbell pullovers. I'm like, do some dumbbell pullovers and tell me how that shit feels in your lats after a while. After your carries minor, your major, like all that. Like there's so many movements. Oh, it's bad on this, it's bad on that. I'm like, no, the execution is bad. Like behind the neck pull downs, oh, that's bad on your shoulders. I'm like, no, your execution's bad. Like behind the neck shoulder press is bad. I'm like, no, the execute. Like some people might just don't have might not have the anatomy for it, and that's okay. Or that's a weakness for them, and they try to go too deep. It's like there's always like, there's no real bad movements. It's just someone can't execute it the proper way. But it's like, there's a stigma of like certain movements. Oh, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. I'm like, have you ever seen a Jefferson curl where he can stand on a box and like literally like get full lumbar flexion?
Yeah.
Like the spine is not straight. It's rigid. It's meant to flex. It's meant to move. So
literally,
like the evidence-based people like, oh, you have a neutral spine. I'm like, go get a bone, like go get a skeleton and show me how the spine's neutral, please. Like I'll wait here, you know.
Yeah, but like you both definitely mentioned a lot of it, but I don't even think that it's a matter of having like imbalances or undertrained. The one thing that's actually undertrained, in my opinion, and that we all know, that it's the core, the abdominal wall itself. Because if you literally learn to brace it, then everything else, it's the powerhouse.
For a bit, just for a few seconds. So I've never trained my abs, right? But this year I've trained it and it's looking much better, but also I can move it a lot better too. But like, to go to what you're saying is you're about to continue.
Yeah.
Of course, super duper important.
It's why it's the fucking core. Come on.
Oh, so here's one thing, Paul. I don't train abs. I do train core. But for this off season, I am going to train abs more and calves. I'm training calves either. I don't need to, but I am. However, core, like I have literally like corrected folks mid lift, and it's put in the program. I've sold PT at a desk by fixing people's core, like without leaving. So here's why. So we all know that it's a powerhouse, and all the areas that you just mentioned of the lumbar, you know, in the posterior chain, they all have areas of movement and range of motion that they are limited to and can't go. But it's only hindered by performance with an inactive or underdeveloped abdominal wall. Here's why. Everything goes there, literally from your legs to the whole meets there. The connective tissues all meet there. And if it's strong, but also agile, as most bodybuilders lack flexion and ability because they're usually walking around with their knees all externally rotated and the hips all jacked up. But that's another discussion. If they fix the abdominal wall and train it, not only to be able to move flexible as far as the transverse planes, but actually train it to be strong enough, they be confident in their movements to where they can feel like, hey, I can actually stretch out, but keep this braced. You know, I bench press 495 without even really warming up the other day and no food, because I just brace my damn glutes and my core and just lift the shit. Like, it's not hard, but you have to know that this is where the center of my house is going to be right here. And if this thing is weak, foundationally speaking, nothing on the extremities part of it is going to be at its maximum capacitor output. If you want a better back, make sure your core is engaged. You can do the eccentric, exaggerated stretch on the, which I definitely agree with, on the cable row, but you can't do it if you're trying to move the core and not the actual lats. If your core is engaged and it's kind of keeping you firm in your seat, you feel confident and comfortable stretching forward. But once you start feeling less confident in an area, just like even in a bench press, folks lose their energy because they start moving their feet around. They have no trust in their core because they don't train it. But that's literally what allow you better control on all lifts, is just training the core. Not even abs, just train the core. Learn how to brace it, learn how to breathe properly, because not all movements require the same natural breathing pattern for the movement. But if you learn how to actually utilize your core to your advantage, you get 3 to 4 more reps, you get a longer workout, you get better output from the muscle groups.
Like obviously bracing for a squat is different versus bracing for a deadlift. Like when it comes to deadlift, I'll actually have my hips high because I'm a conventional puller, and I'll have my core relaxed while my hips are high. And when I pull the slack through with my back, as I wedge my hips down, that's when I take a deep breath, brace in, and then pull. I'm a 700-pound puller with no belt. On squat, like you put the belt to a tightness of like flex your core as tight as possible, and then put the belt on. For bench press, you can actually kind of pull your core in tight, like a TK, and get the arch in your back. And the reason why, when I do maximal effort bench, I actually wear a belt. And the reason why is I just, for one reason, I'm decreasing the amount of air that I can keep within my abdominal cavity. And in that process, when I cinch the belt down tighter and think about bringing my core in, it gives me more thoracic extension. So that way I can get more air into here, and I breathe through my nose versus my stomach. Now I breathe through my mouth when I'm cool, like for, squats and deadlifts. But what you don't understand is like your abs, it's trunk flexion. Like if you're always training your back and your back gets really strong, that's how you create pelvic tilt, and your core tries to pull on that. But people don't realize that your abs don't pull on that, your psoas does. That's why people get so many fucking like back issues, because you have such a weak core that your back, you train your back so much that you get lumbar flexion, and that's why so many people get bulging disc. I dated a girl that had the same thing. I fixed her shit. I've had a lot of clients over the years who have like lower back issues, and I've trained their core, their abdominal wall, and eventually, as this gets stronger, it pulls it back, and people just don't understand that.
Or again, real simple
like,
shit.
as long as it's possible. I've trained abs, everything. Like people doing side bends, like, oh, I'm working my obliques. I'm like, no, that's your internal obliques, dude. Like your external obliques do trunk rotation.
Rotation.
Yeah. I'm like, the side bends, that's how you get your midsection wide, because your internal obliques literally go up and down, and like as they grow, they go out. So
can we say that again for the bodybuilders that think doing deadlifts make you blocky when it's actually the damn side bends that make you blocky?
I mean, I could literally, like, I've showed, like, I remember as a deadlifter that uses no belt. I know, like last year when I was out in San Antonio doing posing with Mike and all them, and like I popped off a vacuum. Like, how the fuck do you have such a tiny waist and like be able to vacuum when you do all your deadlifts and squats? I'm like, because I train my core, like to the point, like it's, I did core training in my early 20s, man. I was like Frank Zane, 1,000 reps of abs a day, dude. I was training but dude, I never did that. But like one day it was like, abdominal wall, TVA. One day it was like, my abs, more trunk flexion. And the next day was typically like obliques, more of like, trunk rotation. And I would just cycle through those every day, and it got to the point now, it's like I have extreme, and that's something, a conversation I had with Terrence one time was like, when he talked about implementing his, he's like, since I've been doing it, he's like, I have better control of my abs. I'm like, they'd be like never training your biceps and expecting to have good control of your biceps. Like, you see so many bodybuilders on stage. Yeah. It's like, because these bitches are weak, dude. Like, I see bodybuilders on days, and I want to punch them in their stomach and just grab their spine, because I feel like their core would be so weak.
And that's also the one thing I've noticed as well. Weak core, the abs, and the lower back. And most bodybuilders, when they do compete, they have no lower backs. Like literally like nothing.
Your lower back will not develop if your core sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. And then they think doing like low cable rows is gonna get it done. And then they deadlift a bunch of weight with little emphasis on the execution of actually contracting the damn erector spinae. Like, okay, you might as well go to a rack pull with 135 and just focus on contracting. First of all, the erector spinae is not some large muscle group. It's tiny. You don't need 700 pounds to train that. So just put it under resistance, and it'll develop, and it'll have your density in that lat spread, which I saw lacking yesterday, which I was actually annoyed by these pros. But yeah.
I know, dude. And it's funny because like what really cracks me up is when you see bodybuilders doing like rack pulls or even deadlifts, and they do that like hyperextension shit. I'm like, that's you don't need to do that. It's okay, bro. Like you don't want to put your shoulders, like when you stand up, like you push your glutes in, and then you squeeze your lats. Like the moment you do this, you literally take that entire load and it runs into your fucking lower back, and that's how you fuck your shit up. Oh, deadlifts hurt my back. I'm like, it should hurt my back too if I was leaning back with that much fucking weight. Are you kidding me?
Man, listen. And then they demo it too, like it's the right way. Then here's my demo. When I said that I was doing rack pulls and deadlifts, somebody was like, that's not a deadlift. I said, I never said it was. It says rack pulls right here. So you missed the whole purpose of the video for trying to focus on what I didn't say. And you missed the whole class.
Yeah. I think a lot of people just, I don't know. It is cool seeing a lot more people now. Like I know for years, like, I'll tell people like, oh, my back big. They're like, man, how do you get your back big? Deadlifts. Oh man, I'm bodybuilding. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I'm not a bodybuilder, but I still have like a relative, like pretty impressive physique for a dude who just like has fucked around most of his life. And then it's like, now I'm seeing like all these bodybuilders who are doing rack pulls, like starting to deadlift now. And I'm like, funny, right? Doing deadlifts and your back's getting bigger. Weird. I've only been saying this for fucking past 10 years, but hey.
And didn't Ronnie Coleman deadlift?
I'm not a pro. Who gives a shit, right?
Didn't Ronnie deadlift? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ronnie deadlifted. Let's see. One of the greatest bats of all time, Franco fucking Colombo. 700 plus pound fucking deadlift at 180 to 190 pounds. Like, if you're a body, here's what it is. And I think Paul and I've had this conversation about like abs and calves. Most bodybuilders are just pussies. When it comes to training, I will say it. They're pussies. And I'll say it to their face. You know why? Because they're pussies. What are you to do? You gonna try to fucking like rep me for 1,000 fucking reps? I don't care, bro. Like,
It's a pageantry, man.
I'll kick you in your midsection, watch you fold over, and then laugh at you for training like a bitch.
And then this brings up the topic of like today, and I just became a pro, so I don't know much about what's going on. But from what I've been seeing over the years, it seems like training is so subpar, but drugs it's so like up here. And then people just don't build the right muscle. They don't have like that density that they need because they just rely on drugs to take care of everything. And it sucks.
Man,
that got big with the GH15 protocol in the 2000s. Like dudes ramping like crazy amounts of growth and just not training anymore. Like they got to a particular muscle size and they just started taking so much shit, dude. It didn't matter what you did.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, Paul, it has nothing to do with the pro ranks. It is more prevalent, obviously, because the competition is gonna be stiff. It's folks will flock to a coach's name without knowing what that coach actually knows. And a lot of these coaches don't know shit. And I'm not talking about your Patrick Torre and your Chris Aceto and these
motherfucker.
Like they're smart as shit. Will they have some misses with clients? Absolutely. But it's probably worse on the client. Hell, I know some of their clients actually do what the coaches, the opposite of what they tell them to do. I'm not going to say who those people are, but then you have those folks that dislike those that keep it honest in this sport. Even my coach, people like hate that he calls out fake coaches, but they also are not willing to go do the work that he does. Like Blue is very, very minimal. It's food and training. Okay. Your safety is always first. And folks are like, man, I can't stay with Blue. I'm like, you just don't want to do the work. Because all he's asking you to do the work. Yeah, you might have to go carbless for a while. Guess what? He's going to get you peaked perfectly. So the usage is definitely heightened at the pro level, and especially even the top amateur level, because they're trying to chase a look without the actual work execution. And I've said this a lot, and you guys, if you ever see me in person, I will talk about this all the time, is that a lot of these pros, especially I've seen it far too often out here in Texas, but a lot of these pros across the board only train hard when the camera's on. That's why y'all see my story talking shit about that. Is like, they were like, man, how you stay so full and so hard on the show? I was like, I train hard each session. Like I do cardio 3.5 times a day. How do you do 3.5? Because one is half my actual session. So it's a half, do math. But it's like, that's what so because I know from a physiological standpoint, my body's not going to drop the weight. It's not going to drop any fat. I'm just going to get tighter, and I need to do that. So if I don't, I can't bring more of my staples, which is conditioning. So I need to do this amount of cardio. I'm not training any less as far as my output, but I train hard, but I still need to do this kind of cardio. And it's also what my coach expects of me because we have a look that we're trying to obtain. But we're not going to up the clean and everything else to get that look. No, we're going to, hey, for one, it gives you a headache, me anyway. So we'll just go ahead and just train harder, do more cardio, and get the same look. So with the pros, though, and I think this was more relevant this season because I've been preaching it a lot. I know I've been pro for 3 years, but I came on the scene this year as far as actually debuting. But I've been preaching it a lot is that you have to set the same the way we tell coaches, not coaches, but clients, SMART goals. Same thing about bodybuilding. Like you got to know as a rookie or a sophomore or even a third-year guy that you're not about to go into a show and just, boom, get first place or get in top call-outs. Like, especially if you don't control the controllables, which are cardio, which is conditioning, fullness and hardness, which you can control by food and training, presentation, which is posing, okay? You can't control structure and muscle insertions and bellies. But if you have those things and you show up with those in place and everything else is all check the box, you're going to be in the top call-out. But if you have those things in place that are non-controllables and you don't do the controllables, you're going to find yourself on the back end. And this is why I felt Steve, and I picked Steve to win Tampa because I thought he was going to come in and peeled. But this is why Steve got 4th. It wasn't because he was in shape. His structure got him the place that he needs as far as they're going to see his face. All right? You can't miss him. Had he come in peeled, nobody beats him. Period. Not even Robert Timms, who I picked Timms to pick the show, to win that show. So, but when folks don't control the controllables, and then you rely on drug usage, as Paul is, talking about it, this is where you start losing places. So your goal needs to be, I need to come in just being better than my last show. And understand that there's some folks that will come to the show that I just can't beat them, and that's okay. I mean, everybody saw my debut. Like, hands down, pose to pose, I won each pose. I can't control everything else. So what do? Did Tijuana. I couldn't control the international aspect of it. Whatever. I just got better. Same thing for Chicago. Chicago, I got no feedback. Zero feedback. So it's like, okay, don't keep competing in a category that they can't grade you right in. But I controlled my parts. I came in peeled. I came in hard. I came in full. I composed my ass off. At that point, it's like, just go to another category. But if you set a goal that said, I need to not only just turn pro, I need to win the show, and then you don't understand that you didn't check all the boxes, when you don't place where you think you need to, you start relying on more drugs. I'm going to just push this harder, or I'm going to quit and blame everybody. Then why are you competing? So you can't rely on the drugs. You got to do your part first as the human and the coach. They need to make sure that they're practicing minimalization. But unfortunately, a lot of these big names don't practice minimalization. They will pump the person.
So this is where the one thing that I think the fitness industry lacks in terms of coaching and online coaching. This is where communication should be really, really important. But because certain coaches are so overly staffed and full of like clients, they can't control any single one of them, so they don't give them that full communication that they required. How do you expect your clients to make progress if you just don't even communicate with them? You know what I mean?
So this is why I hate people advertising 24/7 access. You show that you don't value your own time as a coach and you don't value their time as a client. If you think that you need to be available 24/7, now I'm going to say this, and I'm going to also tell you that my coach actually is available that amount of time, but that's a different story. But if you think that you can, especially because most coaches aren't full-time coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not, so they can't do that. So, but if you think that you should do so, and not only are you saying 24/7 access, you charge, I don't know, under $200 a month, like, I don't think you value your time that much. Because if I'm giving you my time 24/7, that means that in the middle of the damn night in hospital, you can call me and I'm going to coach you. I need to be charging you a price that's worthy of that. And you need to expect that same kind of investment because you can't give quality time to 300 clients if you have a 9 to 5 or if you have 10 damn kids to like, you can't. So don't set that bar. And then when it's time to communicate in peak week, you're dropping the ball. I dealt with that. My first call, I knew on my first shows, I coached myself. Then I got with a coach and he kept missing the mark because when I would try to reach out to him, I had to wait a day or so to, hear a response. I'm like, dude, no, we're peaking. What the hell? So I say all that, and I agree with you. Then you have coaches that actually can and are great with 24/7 access or just giving communication on the spot, i.e. Blue.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Blue. If you see his profile, he has tons of clients.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Tons. He has clients in 18 different countries. Okay. He literally, and he doesn't deprioritize anybody, but you should know, hey, this coach has people in prep or in peak week, probably gonna be a while before it gets to me. Which is why if he sets a call time for you and you miss it by more than like 2 minutes, and it's not because he missed it was on the call, you can probably expect to have to wait a day for him to give you a call for a time window. Like, and I've been there before. Like, oh shit, I forgot, or I was about a few minutes late. He's like, I'll get you later. So, but I will tell you this: this man, I was in the middle of peak week. He was having his child recently, and I was doing the updates. He was in the hospital. I'm like, baby, just born. He's like, no, I'm good, man. You can hear him typing, like on the phone, like doing my stuff. So, like, those kind of coaches, because this is their job, they actually care about their clients, and this is what they do for a living. They can give 24/7 access. He's 2 hours behind me, and then when I compete on the East Coast, he's then obviously 3 hours behind. So we coordinate every single thing from, hey, what time are you expected to be on stage? And then we backlog logistically each meal time, each phone call time, each posing time down to the T. That's why we peak so well. There's not a few coaches that can do that or do that. They just talk about 24/7. They have no idea what that actually means. And I would challenge them to actually see Blue's schedule and his clientele base to understand what 24/7. That's why I don't advertise. I will never advertise 24/7. You better pay me $1,000 a month. If I'm gonna give you all of my time, you gotta be worth paying that. Like, you can't go ask for a top CEO of some business all of his time, and then I'm gonna give you, 10% of what you're asking for.
Yeah, and that's, I've had people ask me, why I charge so much, and it's like, I've had clients who give feedback, who give a lot of feedback and ask a lot of questions. They get their money's worth, and I have some people who like, oh man, I just feel like I wasn't like. It's not always my job to reach out to you 24/7. Like, that's the more you talk, like, I'm here, like, I'm open. Like, you see me on IG. If I'm on IG, like, being active, like, you hit me up, say, hey, I got some questions, this and that. I had a client that lived in Austin, and he traveled a lot for work. And, he had his meal plan and everything. And I had like the macros listed and all of it. And he's like, hey, I'm going out to eat. Like, what do you think I should do? Send me the menu. Pick the menu. Cool. Okay, well, remove this from this meal and this and this. And I basically taught him how to like be intuitive and smart with your food choices. So, and he, since then, like I haven't worked with him in a while. He's like, next time I want to like bulk or something, I'll hit you up just to change some things around. He's like, but dude, it's been so easy since working with you. Like, every time I'm going out, I know exactly what I'm looking at. Like this and that. I'm okay. If I'm going to go out with my friends later, I might pull carbs from this meal and this meal. Because I know at that meal, I'm probably like want to sit down, maybe have a drink, have a nice dinner with them. So he's like, it's just so easy now. Like I just maintain my physique year round. I was like, that's literally all it is, dude. It's like, if you're going to do more later, pull a little bit from earlier meals. Like just, it's simple. I think people just overcomplicate it way too much. Like I was telling Paul, all that matters is like from Sunday to Saturday, like you have an allotment of calories. If there's one day you're traveling, like you're moving a lot, you can't get a lot of food. I carry that shit over to the next day. Now, it's different when you're on bodybuilding prep, but like for an average person, like, dude, if you're running around, you can't get much food in you, and you're just like pounding some protein shakes just to keep food in you the next day. And if you're gonna go out and have burger and fries with your friends, go do it. Like you were down a lot of calories the day before. You'll be fine. Like it's not gonna mess you up.
You got to control the cortisol. One thing I want to put out there for coaches, for people that may be watching that are coaching or interested in actually becoming a coach, is that you got to find ways to control the communication line. Like you got to navigate the client has control of the vehicle, but you're the GPS. All right, you got to navigate it. So in an email setting, like I tell clients, you need to respond in bullet points, no more than 3 lines per bullet point. I'm only going to respond to each bullet point. And you have 24 hours in that initial email to respond to that, but it has to be in bullet points, no more than 3 lines per bullet point. They're like, well, why? Because you make sure that they are like toning down and making a central base like question, in that setting. So that way they're not just rambling on, and you can be specific in your answers as opposed to being general. So bullet points, 3 lines per. So that way, no, you can put 10 bullet points. I don't give a damn, but don't put some paragraph with 4 or 5 questions, and I got to guess which one I'm supposed to answer first. Because now I'm confused. I'm like, okay, well, we got to get on the phone call. And I might just charge you just for not following the rules, or the guidelines rather. But so that's one thing that I've had in place is like bullet points, in the email response. So that way we know what we're responding to each time. And then you as a client can take those answers and apply it back to those questions and separate it as such. You got to teach you're babysitting. I think we talked about this before. It's parenting. Yeah. Coaching is parenting. So if you want somebody to adhere to, you got to talk to them. I have a 10-year-old son. If I don't talk to him, he's going to do cartwheels out of his damn window. Like, you got to talk to him so that way they understand how you want something to be done. And then once you do so, let them do it. Like you said, you have people that come with you and then they go away for a while. If you, outside of competitors, if a coach coaches somebody, in my opinion, longer than maybe 6 months to a year, they're not a good coach. You should be able to coach somebody with enough information within a 6-month or a year window, depending on their goals, to where they have enough education foundationally and beyond to coach themselves until they need to come see you again. Yeah. That's what coaching is. You're not trying to parent them for 30 years off to college and then to their dream job. Like, no, like have the baby and let the baby go. Fall on the way down.
and I agree with that completely. I mean, it's different like when it comes to like maybe even powerlifting or like bodybuilding, because like, the more you work with a coach, like the more they become in touch with your body. So it's gonna make stuff like, for powerlifting, peaking, easier. Like the same thing in bodybuilding, like, peaking, like, it's gonna make it just, they get more familiar with you. And the thing is that the body's change, but for a general fitness person, like I say like within 3 to 6 months, if you ask enough questions and you get enough feedback, you should learn enough from me to where you can go off and do it on your own.
Yes.
You need to make some changes. Like, hey man, like, dude, I really like how that cut went. Like, I kind of want to like learn some bulking from you. Or, hey man, like, I want to try some powerlifting, like instead of just bodybuilding style. Like, I want to learn how to get good at mechanics. Then, like, okay, cool, here we go. Now this means the next round, like, I need to have videos from you. I need these angles, this angle. Like, I'm going to teach you how to look for the weaknesses in your body, like this and that. Like, I had just the other day, we were doing pendulum squats, and like, when I screenshot and I said, I guess I can't do a live, I was literally gonna make a live video on like why so many people in bodybuilding struggle with squats. I'm like, they don't maintain lateral tension. They don't get external rotation through their femur, activating their glutes. They don't open up their hips in the process. So when they're pushing through with their feet, they get their arches cave and they get knee valgus, which means their knees cave because they're pushing way too much with their quads and not through their hamstrings and glutes, and then quads through the extension. Because the purpose is like in the bottom of the hole, like, you're not going to extend much from your quads from the hole. Like, that's all glute and hamstring out. And then as you come here, you get that 90-degree angle. That's when the quads kick in by extending through the knee. And
yes.
I just did, like, what are these shitty shoes he was using? I put them in my flats, and I showed a few techniques. He's like, that felt so much better. That doesn't hurt. I'm like, well, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. So
yeah.
I think do. Really.
No, mechanics aren't your
well, they're not. But at the same time, like, just understanding the basic mechanics will help anyone.
100%, yeah.
Instead of just like, I mean, I guess we all have like different anatomical structures and whatnot. But like, if you just teach them the basics, anyone can like basically understand it.
Yeah. As a coach, well, first of all, because I like differentiation, because not all trainers are coaches, and they need to understand there's a separation in that. It's not a knock on anybody, but a trainer is not a coach, and a coach really doesn't desire to train. But a lot of these coaches are really just trainers with cognizant of coaches. But anyway, if you have enough education from a biomechanical and anatomical standpoint, you as a coach or trainer even should do enough assessments on yourself in different positions to prepare for the clientele that you are probably going to receive. Especially, general fitness, you might come in with somebody, general fitness from a wider range of, imbalance. So why not, as a healthy, educated expert on a light load or no load at all, try out different positionings and what activates? Because now you're prepared. You have to have some kind of idea before you are presented with the subject. Like, that's what research is. So start with yourself first. So then after that, as you obviously develop your own biomechanics, yeah, you can definitely easily adjust to that. But how often are you going to run into somebody with literally the exact same issues as you? So all it takes is you moving your positioning, whether it be a foot or hand or whatever, a centimeter or so, shift in here or there, and to see how that feels. So then when you get the person in front of you that might have the issue, you say, hey, I remember this. I tried this. Here, execute this. And then boom, it looks so much more credible on you to be able to on the spot fix that. And they're going to be like, wow, like, that was easy, and they'll refer you. Like, if you want to stay relevant in this, learn how to retain business through referrals. But you can't be winging it and experimenting in peak week like some of these people do and all this other stuff. But you can't be doing that. So just take the time as that coach or that aspiring coach to collect enough data. I hate the word data in bodybuilding, but in fitness in general, collect enough data with yourself by trying out different patterns. Like, for one, equipment may be taken up in the gym. It might not be available in the gym. An injury might be, giving you a problem, but you don't want to miss out training in that area, so you train around it. There's so many reasons on why a coach or trainer should be equipped and well-versed, which is why I used to say, I still love them, but the way that we do our exam is case studies that they give you as a SSC coach. There's case studies that they give you, and you have to literally give rationale for each phase and for the nutrition that you're going to put in each phase. And they're going to grade you on your ability to actually do so, because now you have to be able to, can you do this in the real world? Because now lives are at risk. It's no longer just a test, like it's real life. And oftentimes we see these seminars and these coaches, and they're just like, well, just do this, or just use this band, or use this machine. Like you guys said at the beginning, if I like doing this lift, this is my favorite lift, fix it for me. Yeah. That's what I hired you for. Don't go tell me to use a different machine. I like this lift in a non-restrictive setting, non-chest supported, whatever it is. So teach me how to do the lift. And if you can't, go find somebody else. Like, I always will advocate for a client to fire their coach. Yeah. Like, not because I want them to not have business, but you're the one in charge of the relationship. Without their card, you don't get paid. So make them do their job and coach you. And if they don't do it, leave.
This, it's funny you talk about there's a huge difference between a trainer and a coach. And I remember, like, earlier this year, a bunch of people shared this post from some trainer, and it was basically, like, I could name the names who all shared this post, but it was you're big and strong, like that doesn't, and you want to show that doesn't make you a trainer, blah blah blah. And I was like, I get it, like I agree with it, like just because you're strong that doesn't make you a trainer. But I was like, I made a video, I was like, but let me tell the difference here, and I see this with a lot of bodybuilders that are pros. I'm like, you motherfuckers can be trainers. Anyone can go get an NASM certification and put someone through a workout. That does not make y'all coaches. Like, there are a lot of bodybuilders that are pros that are like, oh, I'm a coach. I'm like, dude, you're a trainer, dog. Like, you know how to put people through a workout, and that's about it. Here, let me count your reps for you. You do not understand biomechanics. You do not understand, like, different anatomy, like different structures. I'm like, and I was like, point in case, an easy example I use for me is like Yates rows, a great row. And a coach might look at me and say, oh, dude, let's do some Yates rows, get your back big. I can't do Yates rows. Well, why not? I'm like, I have hypomobile joints in the way my elbows insert, and I don't get full external rotation. Well, why can't you do it? Because if I try to externally rotate, my arms are out here. Is this doing a Yates row anymore? I'm like, it's not effective for my body. A coach can look at someone's body and say, that ain't gonna work for you. A trainer can be like, oh man, let me count your reps for you. There's a big difference between a coach and a trainer. A trainer, you're gonna see at 24-hour fitness, who's putting someone through a workout. A coach is someone that's gonna sit down and assess your body, or in the process of the lift, say, hey, stop, we need to fix this.
Yep, you're right.
It's one of the reasons why most competitors, once they start competing, cannot be coaches. They just should not be coaches. Like, you literally just started competing. Like, you're like 1 to 2 years deep. Like, you're learning stuff from other coaches to apply to other people, but like, you haven't experimented enough on like different people or yourself to be able to coach other people, because you never took the time to like educate yourself on coaching.
Exactly, 100%, man. How many people, at least I'm sure you've come across this, dude? I've had people who like hired me as coach before, and then hired me as a coach, took my fucking programs, I turn around and selling to people, hire a different coach for a show, and then win a show, just a random show, like first place novice, not even like first, like not even overall. And all of a sudden they're bodybuilding coach, and I'm like, really? Like, and then it's like you see their clients, it's like all the same training, all the same this, and I'm like, y'all paying this dude for that shit? Like, really?
Wait, but then they charge low rates, like $99. Like, oh, so you know that you're not smart. Now you're gonna charge a cheap price.
Yeah.
But Paul mentioned that, like, these pros, man, I made a post the other day, but I've seen quite a bit this year, especially like these people are either won a pro show or debuted this year as pros, and like now their post says, hire me as a coach. I'm like, wait, what? You weren't a coach when you were an amateur? How'd you become a coach with a pro card? Yeah. I didn't get an extra badge. Wow, what happened? So I'm like, wait, hold on. That's why I made this thing in my story. I said, there's other careers to do as a bodybuilder other than being a coach.
Dude, that shit fucking killed me. What'd you say? That you can go flip burgers?
Yeah, I mean, McDonald's is hiring. Like,
oh, shit. That fucking killed me, dude.
So, but that's because for me, it's an integrity thing of the industry. And we talked about this at some point. Things have to change. And even, especially in bodybuilding, because like health is so prominent, and we're losing folks, not just due to bodybuilding, but the strain and the stress that it puts on you mentally. Can you imagine going through coach to coach and how jacked up your, not cortisol only, but your mental is going to be if you keep getting coaches lying to you or setting goals for you, and then when you don't achieve them, they can't understand from an EQ standpoint, and then you're somewhere jacked up on medication because your mental's all off, and then now your family loses you. Yeah. This stuff, I mean, I've lost people. I've lost soldiers in combat, but not at the rate to where we lose competitors. I'm not even talking about on a big name level, but I know stories from coaches, big name coaches, that have hospitalized competitors that are not even pros, and I've only been competing since 2014. So, like, there's been a shit ton of people just dying. So, for me, when we talk about these things, again, that's always make sure people know, hey, look, I'm not knocking any coach, but I will knock the coach that keeps lying to folks or testing out people, because I value life and I value the integrity of what I do best, which is educate. And when you start saturating it with your ill desire to gain the name and fame and finances, then I got to at some point start like reining that back in, and then call me the bad guy, but I'm gonna save somebody's life.
Yeah.
So if I'm a bad doctor saving lives, and you're a good doctor killing people, I'm gonna be the villain all day.
That's the idea of man. A lot of people just don't like honesty, man. They see it as an attack on their personnel. But it's funny we talked about this idea of integrity, because a buddy of mine who's a really good coach made a post on his Facebook the other day, and he's like, you know, it pisses me off seeing so many of these coaches piggybacking off John Meadows' integrity, when it's like, you know, some of these coaches piggybacking off his integrity are the same ones like preaching about health, but a few of their clients have you know, or they're always fucked up and they're like a walk-in pharmacy. It's like, I
saw that post and I said yes.
Okay. So you know who I'm talking about then. So yeah, dude, it's frustrating, man. It really is. And there's times where I want to drop their names, But I think if I ever saw them in person, I'd say it to their face just out of sign of disrespect, because I have no respect for people like that. Like, I don't give a fuck what your name is. I don't care what company you work for. I also know your company stole shit from another company that I know of. So don't even talk to me. Like, I will blast you on social media just because it's funny to me, out of integrity. Like, so please drop your integrity, sit back, coach your clients, and collect your paychecks. Because
I mean, if that's what you're gonna do that. But don't go tout yourself as being this guru or this go-to person when you're literally just pumping up pharmaceuticals. Like, and I'm not ever gonna pocket watch folks, but I'm gonna value life over finances, because finances can't go with you to the grave, and your loved ones can't get the money back that you spent. So for somebody who has had to tell parents, as me being 21, that, hey, your soldier, your child killed himself on 2 occasions, like that's too touching home to me for me to just allow, when we can prevent these things in bodybuilding. Like, I can't just sit back and continue to let folks. That's why I open my doors to coaching competitors more frequently, because I was anti-competitors, because a lot of them are lazy. Like we said, they're crybabies. They're lazy because they want to do the fancy stuff, because these people have got them thinking they can do all these fancy tricks of bands and yo-yos, then they'll have a good physique. I'm like, no, like, we're going to do just simplicity, but not only that, just getting the integrity back into the sport. And after John's passing, like, that was John was doing. He always maintained that. But there needs to be a collective group of that consistently on social media, and pretty much like not outing like coming out in, but like minimizing the presence of these people that are chasing the fame.
Man, I've sent like a handful of people to David just simply because I know, like, I trust him and what he does. And him and I had that conversation today, saying like, hey man, like, he's filling his shoes. I'm like, man, it's not about filling his shoes anymore. Like, he started walking a path. It's like, it's our job now to finish his path out, man. And I do think that more than ever, like, there are coaches that a lot of people like, they produce results, but I'll tell anyone, don't go to them unless you're gonna run the chance of dying early, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like,
at what risk?
Yeah, they produce some pros.
Yeah. At what risk?
Look at them and they're walking. You can tell within the next like 4 to 5 years, these dudes are gonna die. You can see it.
Yep.
And it's also, this is the part where like the competitors themselves have to honestly be accountable for their health.
Yeah, 100%.
They can't just let some like random coach tell them to do this and that simply for the sake of winning, that they decide to do all this extra stuff. Like, hey man, it's your health. You're not gonna, this is wrong, but to be able to do it because you want to win and compete and sacrifice everything, this is where I think we get the idea of like bodybuilders are just selfish.
This goes off the idea that they asked someone recently a while back, and this is social media creates this 15 minutes of fame. I think they asked someone like, would you rather live X amount of years or die at 30 with a gold medal? And people are like, gold medal. People would rather die early. People would rather die early with like a gold medal or a Mr. Olympia title versus living a longer life. Like, people would rather think that one moment, that one achievement is going to give you a legacy. No, it doesn't. Like, John Meadows has a legacy because of what he did for a lifetime. Like, but people, because social media, like, oh, you see someone get big, it was quick. And I'm like, anyone that rises that fast falls just as fast.
As life. I'm always said that. I'll be 31. So like, and I've told, I applied to Keon. Obviously we train, the same gym. And I definitely want to be like, a mentor for him, because at his age, I understand to a degree the success thing. Not that I was successful in bodybuilding. I didn't start as early as he did. But when he backed out for the reasons he backed out for, protecting his mental, there was so much pressure because of success. Like, I found that out in my late 20s, right? Got all the success, and it's just hammering on you, especially when you're somebody that's goal-driven like myself, when you don't step back and like exhale and like step back. I told this. So I said, life does not care at what rate you hit your peak. It's still going to give you a lesson. It's better to be a little bit older to receive that lesson, because the younger you are, you're not prepared for it. Mm-hmm. However, we can't control when we reach success. So he's a good example. There's a few others as well. He became successful very, very early. Last year, life said, hey, welcome to the big leagues. Not bodybuilding style, but just welcome to adulthood.
Yeah.
And boom, the mental. He was like, whoa, and he stepped back. So I applauded him. And all these folks that were down him for, oh, you did it for some girl. Like, no, understand. Y'all can't compare what you're doing to what he has to face, because you don't understand because you haven't reached level of success that way. Because if you had, you have more respect for why he's stepping back.
Yeah.
And it's a mental health thing. Like, I've been there, somebody who's battled suicidal ideation, somebody who's seen firsthand with 2 people kill themselves, somebody who has constantly, been medicated, due to combat. Then I have my own stressors, and then, my success as well. So it's like, I got pressure externally and internally. So when life hit me, I was like, shit, how do I manage this? It was late 20s when I was still, I was still married, had kids and everything. Like, I had a family. It's like trying to show up for them. So imagine these young folks in bodybuilding getting successful early, young Olympians, not just Olympians, young like gunners for the top spot.
Yeah.
And trying to manage life when they haven't even lived yet. So, and if you're a coach with no psychology background, or at least understanding, not even psychology, because, some people don't want to go to school for that, but you can do EQ courses.
Yeah.
You can do EQ courses. Learn how to be empathetic. All right. Which is why I'm not going to name the company. I said I would never say the name again. But spoke about Simone Biles being stressed out. And I'm like, dude, her net worth at 24 is much more than your company, and a few companies combined. But here you are speaking down on her because she's not pushing through mental health. I said, you can't even compare to you can't even understand what she's dealing with because you haven't been there, but you have the audacity for a company that needs athletes to be talking bad on the athlete for protecting themselves. So again, the lack of empathy in fitness is terrible.
Well, I think you have a lot of people nowadays, and I've spoken about this, like, empathy comes from a sense of understanding and experience. Like, sympathy comes from education and knowledge. That's it. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm empathetic. Like, no, dog, you're sympathetic. Have you ever experienced that? You ever seen that? Have you ever felt that? If you haven't experienced any of that, then sit the fuck down and just say, hey, such you're going through that. Just leave it at that, because that's about as much as you can say. Like, as a veteran myself, like, when I see for a therapist, years and years ago, I made sure they were a veteran. Why? Because I can't speak to a non-veteran about veteran shit, and it's like, last year I pulled out a powerlifting meet. I was working on my fifth powerlifting meet. The 4th one got canceled. I was working on my 5th powerlifting meet in a year and a half. I started feeling like 3 weeks out, like it was just like everything was going to shit. So I cut it, jumped into my bodybuilding show. And about 7 weeks out, I spoke to Hunter at the time, and he's like, what do you think? He's like, well, you're 7 weeks, but you look more like 9 or 10. And I was like, man, you know what? I've been on this for so long, so I stopped. I got with John in January for a show, tore my Dutchess in the 2nd week squatting. Just tore. We pushed through, but I was dealing with so much stress. And John, he said, man, I can tell you've been stressed out because your body hasn't, like all the cardio, nothing, you're not dropping weight. So I pushed back, and then, that's when David and, Paul and I were doing our podcast, and he was moving down. I was like, why not just work with David? We all work together. We all talk together. So I worked with him, and then, and I should have, when I pushed back, I should have pushed back to later in the year and taken some time off. And that's my fault. Because at this point now, like, dude, I've been on and off since like January. And I haven't really came off. So we're going to push through this show. I got 6 weeks out. We're going to push through. And then after that, dude, I'm going to take like 8 to 10 months just relax, man. And it is. It's a mental break, man. And people don't understand that. I reached out to Keon and I told him how much I had for that. Because, like, you don't see that shit anymore, especially at his level, because everyone's jerking you back and forth. Do this, do that. Like, people, I've gotten shit from my dropping shows. Like, there was a dude a while back I speak with on social media. He was running his mouth. Oh, how many shows have you dropped out of? I'm like, bro, I'd rather drop out of my shows and have my mental health than be some fucking 21-year-old kid with fucking ED because you're slamming so much goddamn gear and you're fucking shows. Like, dog, have fun at 25 when your dick stops working and you try to blow your body up. And I'm at 34, not even at my peak.
Yep. Listen, I'm only doing this. I'm 35 and I'm done. So I got 4 years left. And I was like, yep, I'm done.
I think I got a couple years left because I started around 30. So I never really pushed it. So, but yeah, I think I might push to like 37, 38 at the latest. But I'll probably I'll compete this year, probably push for a pro card next year, and move back to powerlifting for a little bit. But I'm not going to be someone who tries to I'm gonna just do it as while I'm doing have fun. But I just I love training, I love food.
I'll get to the Olympia. I know that. I mean, my genetics alone and my work ethic will get me there. That's all that matters now. Everybody wants to be Mr. O. I don't care about that shit.
If I could get to the O at 212, I'd do that. That'd be fun. I think I could. I just have to really start pushing into. mean, I've never tried to push the grow either, but I think me at like a 15, 220, you trap that down, and I could probably do it. Like,
That's what I'm aiming for. So I got a call today in a little bit. We're gonna start putting together. Because I haven't been on a strict diet, since Chicago.
I've seen.
But I've been eating, been eating, training. But we're going to put together some things and push. And then, that's a goal. 225-ish, come down on stage, probably right around 200. So.
That's well, I mean, and that's what when I saw Keon, I was like, that makes me want to do 212. Like, because it's just, we got so used to seeing dudes come in at 212, like 240, 250 in off season, and then 212, and I'm like, that's open division, but like the shorter version of open. Like, can we just separate 212 from open? Like, let's make 212, in my opinion, and now it is. You see, to me, 212 is like classic bodybuilding, and that's what I like about it.
That's why I said it needs to be category.
It needs to. It shouldn't be 212. It needs to be classic bodybuilding, and then big motherfuckers. You call them big motherfuckers.
No, I need 212. They need 212 because you can still have the difference of poses, but they need. And I'm gonna get off for it in a minute. I got another call. But you need classic physique. It's a soft look. Classic bodybuilding is a hard look. Serge Niebuhr, Lee Haney, even Flex Willard. Before he got super big, that's classic bodybuilding. And then. Even Keon is classic bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Sean is a 212 guy. It's not classic at all. I love Sean, but that would be a classic bodybuilder. That would be 212, right?
George
Keon
Peterson, another classic bodybuilding, bro.
Exactly. But but he's so tall, he can't win 212. You put him in the open, he's go too big. Well, look at it's pretty. So again, you need, and not only that, if you do classic bodybuilding, you add in maybe 5 more pounds to that same height because now you can affect density. You're not going for a soft look. Yeah. But I couldn't get graded outside of me getting screwed out of my, your debut. I couldn't get graded right because instead of them saying, "Hey, we just want a soft look," you don't put me next to your desired champion to at least make them work. And somebody called me. I was like, "You the one that's been crying this year?" I said, "I haven't cried after no show. I haven't complained. I've been honest. Hey, I'm not the look that they want. Yeah. They want a soft look. I'm not going to come in soft. Sorry, that's a staple for me. I'm not going to come in soft. So so with that, to maintain health and integrity and energy, y'all brought out wellness. Separate classic. So that way, because even Paul, how tall are you, Paul?
5'7".
Right. So 5'7", Paul can come in, I think, 190?
Well, yeah, 190.
For as a pro level, I think I think it's 190. It might be 195.
192.
192. So yeah, right. So can you imagine if Paul, even at 5'7", can come in maybe 198? Like
on stage.
I'm saying even just weighing in 198 and then just boom, because he can actually grow. So I mean, I'm not sure he's right now, but even at 192 for 5'7", some guys, their physique, because everybody's physique different, but that 5'7", 192 might not be their best look if you put them in classic physique because they got to be softer. What if I'm harder at 195 weigh-in wise?
Yeah.
Right. So then I get to be 200 on stage. Like somewhere we need to have separation because you're going to have people with different insertions and a different fill out that they're going to be softer. So they might be prettier for physique. Arnold's classic physique, Lee Haney's classic bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So I hope so, man. But I'm be 212. So that's all I'm be anyway. I got to go and compete against Keon, like I said. And I told Sean I was going to get on his ass last year when he came down here. So.
I mean, no worries, man. Honestly, I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more consistent with the whole podcast and thing. Because we definitely need to see a change. It's been too long. People aren't doing anything about it. And the more they're not doing anything, the worse that it's getting. And noticing that John just passed away, he was probably the only voice of reason in this entire industry. So my job is to kind of just change it to a different direction. But I'm a nobody right now. Nobody knows the fuck I am.
Whatever. I said the same thing, man. I said the same thing. And then I did my debut the way I did. And apparently my name has been all across the states. So I'll take that. I'm gonna message y'all. I got actually a YouTube idea that I was thinking of yesterday where it's literally just straight up the honest hour where it's all
I'm down for that shit. I'm the honest hour. It's not to carry it on too much, but when I was talking with David about some stuff, he's like, there were certain things I think John didn't want to say because family and stuff like that. He's like, and some coaches still like don't want to, the businesses and stuff like, man, there's certain things they don't want to say.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, we know I'm totally okay with saying whatever the hell needs to be said. People can look at me, I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I said what needs to be said, man. If it bothers you, that's your problem. Carry
Absolutely. On. Absolutely.
But I greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
Your time, man.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Some other time. But this was really good. It's a great start. It's going to be on our prep boys. Before we everything, where do you think people can find you on social media?
They can find me on IG at swag21_IFBB PRO. My coaching page is Next Level Health and Wellness, the word and. Facebook, that's a list. So you find my name, you click follow, but it's my name, LeLand DeVaughn Jr. But you can click follow on there. But if you want some real honesty, follow that page. But just be alarmed that it's definitely thought provoking. So
yeah, I've heard. I think I might have requested you today. You might need to respond because I've heard.
I'll be checking. Yeah,
I've heard from this guy that it's a bit. I'm like, oh, I want to see this.
Yeah. I kind of scaled back, but I can definitely get out. But yeah, definitely. I'll add you, man.
Yeah, man. Sweet.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have
a good day, man.
Good day, man.